You don't frequently hear the word sales in the world of investment real estate because at the high level of the sector, quote, selling someone in the traditional sense isn't really thought of as being advisable for a variety of reasons. Most notably, if you really push someone across the finish line, they will eventually be stuck with buyer's remorse. And when I say they will be stuck with buyer's remorse, what I really mean is you will be stuck with them having buyer's remorse. So the question becomes, how do you position yourself and your conversations in such a way that makes the sales process go a little bit easier so you don't have to start implementing those hard close strategies, which were written about in virtually every sales book of the 1980s. Today, we're going to talk about it all. We're going to talk about how to streamline your approach so that you don't feel like you're trying to push someone across the finish line. And we're going to use a nice little mnemonic device, which our guest uses, which is going to help you remember some of the most important aspects of being an effective salesperson. So in this discussion, we're going to talk about how to listen to your potential clients to hear where their pain points are, how to hit the ask button without being worried that you're being too pushy, and how to eliminate pitch anxiety, which even high performers in the real estate sector struggle with. Hey, also, don't forget, we're still taking commitments for our current workforce housing fund. We already have an initial property which is closed in the fund, and we're in late stages of due diligence on the second asset. I can't go into too much detail now, but what is likely going to be the second property in the fund is located in one of my favorite markets in the U.S. when it comes to workforce housing. It's a growing economy, robust in-place diversification of employment, and because of a variety of factors, workforce housing assets have some of the lowest expense ratios in the U.S. in this particular market. So if you're interested in learning more, head over to asymcapital.com to check it out. That's asymcapital.com. You can also find a webinar about the fund, and if you watch it, you'll have a very clear understanding of the thesis, the position in the marketplace, as well as the sponsor's perspective on a lot of this. I think you'll find it really interesting. All right, hope you enjoy the episode. How's it going, everyone? Our guest for today is Michelle Weinstein, who is a sales strategist, entrepreneur, and innovator. She has over 20 years of sales experience selling everything from multi-million-dollar homes to Paleo meatballs. Her achievements include raising over $1 million for her last company, landing contracts with major retailers such as Costco and the Vitamin Shoppe, and pitching her way onto ABC's Shark Tank, which we definitely have to talk about. Yeah. She's now the founder of The Pitch Queen, and she's also the host of Success Unfiltered, as well as the Abundant Accountant podcast, where she helps business owners and entrepreneurs learn to love selling, make a bigger impact in the world, and skyrocket their top line revenue. Michelle, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And definitely, looking at that bio and stuff, it's interesting because sales is something that I have found that people either love or hate. And either into the spectrum, it's usually they're not doing it right in the sense that if you love it and you love it, it's usually people that are super aggressive. They're trying to get those last minute pitches that always result in a buyer's remorse. And if they hate it, they're realizing that selling is really about transferring emotion. This is just, if you're excited about your product, you should be willing to sell it. So we're trying to find that to love selling in a way that's healthy, that builds relationships, that always does that stuff. And I know that's something that you spend a lot of time practicing and putting a lot of effort towards. So I'm really interested in getting all of that today. But before we even jump into that, I want to hear more about, your background, how you got started and why you decided to make that leap towards entrepreneurship and, how that story unfolded.
Well, we could talk for probably half an hour about my story, but I'll give you the shortened version, okay? So I had a regular job out of college. I was working at an accounting firm called Moss Adams, and I was sitting in a cubicle. And I realized that after 3 years of your parents telling you that this is the best job ever, and that, you can't leave, you have a 401k plan, you're making $30,000 or $40,000 a year. I literally just could not sit in front of a cubicle anymore. So I was there 3 years too long. I quit. I moved back to Arizona where I pretty much grew up. And I said, what could I do with numbers and with sales? Because I had a part-time job at Nordstrom the whole time I lived in Seattle after college. And I was really good. I'm not going to lie. I was really good. I loved helping people pick out clothes. And, I would only work the seasonal shifts. So during their half yearly sale and during the holidays. But there was something I was really great at. And, I really loved talking to people too. And I said, what could I do with numbers and sales? And at the time, the mortgage industry was really great. Or also for all of you listening, real estate. So I was in the mortgage business. I ended up moving to California. They offered me a management position in San Diego, which is where I live now. I've been here about 13 years. And when you are doing real estate or mortgages in California, for either, you had to get a real estate license. So I got a real estate license and I did a little bit of real estate on my own. And after that, it was pretty repetitive and I wasn't really totally passionate about real estate. And I was really into health and fitness. I was also a part-time fitness instructor and eating right was always the most difficult part. So for pretty much almost the last 10 years of my life, I actually started a healthy food prepared meal delivery business where I was on this mission to help change the world and this country one meal at a time, to make it healthier.
Sure.
And in March of 2017, I had to close that business. So I had a pretty massive failure, had to deal with that. And from there, I said, you know what? I started that company because I actually didn't like to cook, right? I was looking for a personal chef in a package. And what I learned from that experience, and then if you want to listen to it all, you can listen to it on my podcast, Success Unfiltered. I literally talk about that story in probably every episode. But here's the thing I learned. I said, if I could just do what I'm really, really good at 99.9% of the time, what would that be? And it is sales. I pitched on Shark Tank with that company. I raised over $1 million in equity and some in convertible notes. I got our products inside Vitamin Shoppe, inside Costco. I was able to pitch to buyers and I was really, really good at all that. And I was like, okay, well, why don't I just spend 99.9% of my time just doing sales? And I went to Maui after I had that failed, business and was like, okay, I don't even know how I'm going to deal with this. And, what are people going to think, right? You had the whole image thing. And I said, actually, how can I take all these lessons learned? Because it was literally almost a decade, 25% of my life. I'm almost 40. So that was almost 10 years of my life. And I said, how can I take that experience and help others with it? So that's what I did. From there, I started my podcast, Success Unfiltered, where I talk about failures. I talk about how the failures get to where you're at today. There's no way I would be doing what I'm doing today without having that happen to me. And we don't see it when it's actually happening, right? And it was actually really therapeutic too. So I've interviewed, 7, 8-figure entrepreneurs, even higher than that. And from there, I'm actually creating now a course like how to think and act like an 8-figure entrepreneur. Because when you're thinking about the sales related activities, which we're going to talk about today, you actually have to get your mind right. And getting your mind right is one of the biggest challenges that I see when people, start to talk about sales. They, like you said, they either hate it or they love it. And I have been able to convert a lot of accountants that was my niche I chose. I loved working with the accountants out of college. I have a degree in finance. I love numbers. I love intelligent, smart people. And I was able to teach introverted accountants how to sell and how to really come from a place of service and relationship-based selling. And, they really love to help their clients. And like you said earlier, if you're able to help and serve people, why is the sales process so hard? So that is the quickest story I could probably share about my background. And, here I am today with my business, The Pitch Queen. And, I do chats like this. And how can I help you see actually sales is needed? And if you don't share and sell your services and your products, you're doing your clients a disservice. And especially if you're in real estate and you don't really like to talk to clients and the sales process or can't figure it out, then maybe it's not the best industry for you either.
Yeah, so, fair enough.
I know that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Listening to that, I've listened to many episodes of your show, but I never caught the date. I didn't know how recently that was. That you had that struggle. And
March 27th, 2017, I'll never forget the date. I literally, I don't know. I've never been married, but from what I've been told, it was like worse than a divorce because you had like all these files for 10 years of a business and employee files. And I had a retail store. I had a kitchen. I had 25 employees I had to let go. Like that was traumatizing. It literally was a little bit traumatizing, I must say. But I'm good now. I'm actually great now. And I now look at that experience like, well, I'm, glad that happened.
Yeah, and that's why I was surprised that it was so recently because, I mean, coming on the show, we have a lot of horror stories where 2008 happened, people that made money in the business for 50 years lose money for the first time ever. But there's something about that, which is that everyone was kind of going through it at the same time. And everyone that comes on the show always knows about 2008, but you lived a personal 2008 and 2017. And there's an extra level of it being a little lonely in the sense that markets changing and going in different directions, but you went through something like that. And now no one says, oh yeah, 2017, but like that is your 2008, like that is your moment. So I appreciate you coming on. I'm pretty surprised. You want to know something
hilarious, Hunter? I actually experienced 2008 too.
Right.
I invested into properties. I was in the real estate and mortgage business. I saw the whole thing went upside down. I was actually working for a mortgage company. And I told my regional VP at the time, I said, you know what? I was a financial analyst out of college. I know how to read financial statements. I see your sales goals that you're giving me. I give this company literally 12 to 18 months before you go bankrupt. They were one of the first to go bankrupt.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Pretty fascinating. So I definitely want to circle back about, team building and things like that. Something you obviously went through at a significant level. You mentioned 25 employees. Let's talk first about sales. This is something that you've really built your career on. And I want to say again, spending 99% of your time selling, that is an excellent goal. Man, if I could spend 99% of my time doing like my absolute unique ability, that'd be awesome. So, let's talk about that real quick. I know you developed a system in terms of getting people from A to Z. So let's talk about some of the components of, your sales process and some of the things that really make it stand apart and make that ease. So people go from, a skilled entrepreneur that hates selling to someone who's really excited about sharing their product with others.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll make it so you can actually remember this today and maybe take away something from today and actually put it into action. So that's my intention for you and for everyone listening. And, feel free to email Hunter and tell me if something worked because I want to know if it helps you. So I've come up with the Pitch Queen system. And if you can just remember pitch, PITCH, then you'll be really good to go. So the Pitch Queen system is, what I would call the foundation to a sales process if you don't really even know where to begin right now, or if you've been selling for a while and you want to up your game, this will help you too. Because there might be some things that I share with you that you've never even heard before. So if you can remember the P in the Pitch Queen, I call it problem solving. And one of the foundations to a really good sales conversation, especially with real estate or anything that of a service-based, I still call real estate service-based, even though you're selling a product, but it's not yours. It's really coming from a place of how can I help this client solve a problem, right? What is your client's immediate problem? What solution are they looking for? Are they moving, from Dubai to San Diego and they have 2 weeks to find a house and they really don't know what to do? So what I call problem solving is thinking about what are the problems that your client has in front of you and how can you ask strategic questions to have them answer what their problem is. So also thinking about like, what is the ultimate reason why they would want to, engage with you or hire you as their agent or hire you for, investing with you, Hunter. So really clients, they're not buying your service. They're not buying your skill set. What they're buying is a solution to a problem. And from the sales point of view, it's how do you ask strategic questions to get them to say what their problems are. And understanding what that problem is the gold to having someone want to work with you versus somebody else.
Perfect. I think that's great. I don't even want to interrupt you.
Oh, you want me to keep going? Okay, got it.
Yeah, you could do it. You could do it.
Got it. So, I don't know, Hunter, if you want to give some examples, but, you can give me a scenario and I can give you some ideas on questions that you could ask your clients, but I need a scenario of some sort.
Totally. So I'll tell you something that frequently happens when investors are interested in investing in the types of assets that we invest in. Most of them are always concerned about the stock market. Okay. And this is the case no matter what. They don't care if it's high, if it's low, if it's medium. They're always so cautious about it because it's extremely unpredictable and they're looking for that predictability of outcome. So that's the main thing that is motivating people to invest. But it's how to elicit that out of them. So that's really what,
right.
I didn't find that problem comes up.
So the stock market is the problem, right?
Yes.
So a good question that maybe you could ask your client who's about to invest in real estate, is what is your vision for diversification of your investment portfolio?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So it's an open-ended question, number one. And number two, it's pretty broad. From there, then you can ask a more specific question. So Hunter, what would you say if I asked you that question and you're the investor?
When I really get down to it, I want to be able to rely on my cash flow to pay off expenses.
Got it.
That's my vision.
So if you were able to rely on your investment cash flow to pay off your expenses, what would be the main expenses that you have right now that you would want to tackle first, and why?
Definitely rent. I don't want to have to worry about that ever.
Okay.
I'm also looking at, I like to do things like work. So I need internet, et cetera. And I'd have to make sure the business expenses are paid for. And once the housing and the business expenses are paid for, I also want to be able to take time off. And the vacations are kind of the last on the list.
Okay. So with the vacations being the last on the list, when was the last time you were able to really take a vacation and not have to stress about any of your expenses?
That was at the beginning of November.
Got it. So are there any other things that you've wanted to accomplish in the last year that you haven't been able to do yet?
Yeah. I definitely would like to invest more money in the company and then also make some investments as well. So those are the things that when I have access to capital, that's where the money's going.
Got it. So what I'm hearing from you, and then I would repeat everything you just said, but I didn't take notes. Normally I take notes.
Sure.
So that's how the one question turned into 3 or 4, right? Mm-hmm. And that is how you're able to solve the problem. And Hunter's problem in that case was going on vacations, having cash flow consistently so he can pay his rent, his internet bill, and all that great stuff. So do you notice how we ask the questions to ultimately get to the client's problem? But I didn't tell him what his problem was, even if you know it.
Yeah.
So that is the most important, crucial part of a, relationship-based sales process. So let's go on to the letter I in the pitch, right?
Sure.
It's not about you. And if you can just remember this, there are many reasons why clients won't, invest with you or, engage with you on if you're doing like an agent type relationship, like as a real estate agent. But when someone turns you down, it's never about you. And if you can detach yourself from that, I think this is like actually one of the biggest problems and hardest things for people to get and grasp. But we're so attached to the outcome that we have this fear that we don't even want to ask clients to work with us because we're afraid of the rejection. That's actually why I started my podcast, because it's all about the no's and the rejections that we get. But if you don't care, and I may not care because you obviously want to work with clients and you want to grow your revenues and you want to grow your business. But if you can detach yourself in that it's okay if they say no and it's okay if they say yes, and know that it's not about you, that's when really things start to thrive. So I believe that one of the most important things you can do for your revenue success, sales success, investment success, whatever you want to call it, is how you come back from a no or from a rejection and keep moving forward and not let it affect you, because it's not about you. We are all here to serve our clients, serve our investors, serve whatever is best for them, right? And so that is the I, because when you approach a new client, a new investor, whoever it may be, and you come from the mindset and the energy place of being detached from the outcome, you do not seem desperate anymore. You now seem more attractive. So it's actually a skill set that you have to really, really practice.
It's very hard to accomplish that especially when you're getting started, because you can hear that over and over again.
It is.
But if your goal is explicitly lined out and you're like, okay, look, I need 5 people to close within this period of time.
Right.
That's just a small number that every one is so important. And when you're just getting started, the numbers are very small. So every single person matters. So you want to do this follow-up stuff where it's coming from a place of need. And then especially in the investment community, they're like, why do you need this $25,000 or $50,000? I mean, there's many places to get that kind of money, except for when you're just started, in which case you don't know what you're doing, most likely. So that's really like the critical part there is you have to focus on not coming from a place of neediness. This is something I've mentioned on the show before. There are trillions of dollars out there investing in bonds that have a negative interest rate. Mm-hmm. That's how desirable your investment vehicles are if you have something that's not a negative return. So if you remember that before you start your pitch, you're going to most likely be in a much better place. I also wanted to touch on coming back from a no. One of the main things that you need to have as an entrepreneur is the ability to weather those highs and lows. I've seen different entrepreneurs go through that process differently, handle it differently. And it is a skill set that you have to be very good at, or the whipsaw will really hurt you.
Yeah. And I think it just takes, like, I interviewed Mel Robbins and she's amazing. And I get asked all the time, how do you get to that point, Michelle? And I say it takes practice, and confidence, like she says, comes from taking action. And literally I see it all the time. It's the fear of the no that stops you from even talking to people. It's the fear of the unknown that stops you from talking to people. But here's the thing, if you don't even ask your clients and you're so fearful of it, then you're going to always be coming from that needy place. And that's where you start to sell with sleaze. That's when it becomes pushy. That's when it becomes sleazy. So if you want to sell without sleaze, then that is what you need to practice. And it's difficult when you have to pay rent. You have bills to pay. You have a family to take care of. You want to quit your job and start doing this 100% full time. Trust me, when I closed my business, I had no job in line. I had $100,000 in credit card debt from the business, but in my name. I'm like, I'm not going to file bankruptcy. I didn't know what the heck I was going to do, but I couldn't come from a place of being desperate and, from a place of scarcity. It's how do you come from a place of abundance? And literally I teach it in a lot of the work I do. And it was similar even when I started my podcast, and I call it this be, do, have. So when I started a podcast, I wasn't a podcaster, right? I didn't even know really what I was doing. I'd done a lot of research. I had some really great friends like John Lee Dumas who supported me and walked me through the steps. And people are like, oh, Michelle, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know. And in my mind, I said, you know what? I think I love talking to people, and I could probably do some really amazing interviews and generate some great content and help people through everything I've been through and other people. But I had to be this awesome podcaster and then do the actions that person would do to actually have a successful podcast with sponsors and listeners, right? And sometimes you actually have to be this amazing salesperson that you're not, and do the work that person would do, and then just take baby steps like Mel Robbins always says. And that's where you can create and get some confidence by taking action. But if you live in the world of fear, then that's going to be a little bit more challenging.
Before we even go on to tea, because I want to circle on that, that's something that some people absolutely struggle with is just that initial step. So, that fear of the unknown, what are some of the things that people can do to overcome procrastination or pitch anxiety?
Pitch anxiety. I literally tell people, and I work not one-on-one, but I teach small groups of accountants right now. And I host online classes, and they ask me the same thing, Michelle, what do I do? I said, what do you mean? What do you do? You actually go try what I just said. It's like you're going to the gym and you want to get a really nice butt, but you don't want to do the squats to get the butt. It's if you don't start squatting, then how are you going to start growing your glutes? It's just not going to happen, right? Well, if you don't talk to your clients in a different way and try on what I had to say, it's not going to happen. But literally on Monday, one woman, she does profit first consulting, and she used to give it away for free. And I said, And she learned from another CPA that, oh, well, it's $2,500 for that consultation. And on Monday, she said, Michelle, you know what? I'm sick and tired of not getting paid for really doing any of my work. And I'm done. And I went in and I told my client, I will do the profit first consultation and my fee is $2,500. And the guy gave her a credit card and she had a new client and she got paid for it. She just tried it on. It's like trying on a new shirt, right? Like you go to the store, you're like, ooh, that shirt looks nice. Let me try it on. So what I say is anything I'm saying or anything Hunter's taught you, you've got to try it on and just see what happens. If you don't try it on, then how will you ever know?
For sure. I mean, look.
And my client who is introverted, never thought they could sell a day in their life, never thought she could actually get paid for everything I kept telling her she could. She got a dose of confidence on Monday. Well, guess what? From here on out, everything starts to shift. And that's what happens in the sales process. So you're never sleazy. You're never pushy. And if you can just remember like one or two things and try it on and try it and see what happens, and then send Hunter an email because I want to know about it because that's what makes me happy, then you're on your way. But if you're going to live in a world of procrastination, then guess what? That's on you and go get a job. Because that's my alternative that I tell people. If you're not willing to try it on, then you're not cut out for entrepreneurship or taking risks. Entrepreneurship is a roller coaster ride. It is risky. You can take calculated risk for sure, but some people just aren't cut out for it. And that's okay too. So you can go get a job. They guarantee you clients, I'm sure, and you just do your work. So that's your alternative because there's always the price you pay, right?
Absolutely.
You're going to pay prices. So the price you pay on entrepreneurship is that you get to try new things on and you might get told no, you might get rejected, or you might screw something up. However, the chances are slim on that happening because when you really are passionate about what you love, or you're like really working with this amazing client that you're trying to get, everything starts to shift. So I say try it on.
Yeah. I mean, look, we try to make this podcast entertaining. I try to make some bad jokes every now and then so that people that are just enjoying it, driving around here and there, it's a fun show. But I'll tell you what is a lot more fun. The bank account. Yeah. Actually making the cash registers ring. When you actually take action and make investments or raise money, capital, that stuff is actually the fun part. This conversations are just like enjoying those wins. So, all right, cool. So we've definitely covered that. Let's talk about tea. What's the tea there in the pitch?
Tea? Well, shoot, we could use tea for today. Try it on. Go try on what we're talking about. Totally. But T also stands for talking less. I do see that one of the biggest challenges in any sales conversation, all my accountants have told me this too, is the expert talks too much. And whoever you're selling to, whatever client you're trying to work with, whatever investor you're trying to engage with, they should be talking 80% of the time. You should be talking 20%. You need to be listening 80% of the time. So if you can use the 80-20 rule, there's a really great book called the 80-20 principle, then you'll be on your way. So that is the T.
Yeah, that is the key because hearing where they're coming from is going to help you guide the rest of the conversation. Yeah. They may uncover really important things that could be very compelling to your product or service in that 80-20 when they're talking. You will not uncover something while you are talking. You can understand anything while you're doing so. Just wanted to mention that. Go, moving on.
Yeah. So talking less is really, really, really important. And I always like to also, have some little things to think about. Think about if you were that client, you were that investor, and it's really hard because especially, and I talk a lot about my accountants because I love them. However, the accountants are so smart and so intelligent that they think all their clients need to know what form they're going to fill out. And this goes to the investors too. If you have all these details, guess what? Your client or the person who's investing, I guarantee is not going to really care about any of that kind of stuff. So just really, keep it simple, allow them, and think about if you're in an hour conversation, they're talking 80% of that hour. So we'll move on to the C. C is cues, listening for buying cues. And there's a lot of different cues, and I don't know if we have time to go into all of it. So, there's verbal cues, there's nonverbal cues, but Hunter, if your people and listeners want to get more of this detail, they can go to sellwithoutsleaze.com and get a lot of all this, what I'm talking about. They just put their email in, it's totally free. So
perfect. We'll link to that in the show notes page.
Yeah. So sellwithoutsleaze.com. But there are two kinds of buying cues. So if you're on the phone with people, there's verbal buying cues. And if you're, in person and, depending on if you're in person on the phone, there's verbal cues and non-verbal buying cues. So some of the non-verbal buying cues are, are they relaxed? Are they making eye contact with you? Are they showing enthusiasm? Like you can probably tell if a client is ready to move forward with you. But a lot of times we're so stuck on the need part. Remember the I, it's not about you. When you're so stuck about, oh my God, I need this client. Oh my God, I need this investor. Oh my God, like if I don't get this, I'm not going to pay my rent. Or if you're coming from that place, you don't even hear the buying cues. And that's one of the biggest challenges that I see a lot of people having. And when you can work on the I part and realizing that if you're like calm, you can actually hear from when your clients are ready to, when they're saying things that say, yep, I want to work with you. And then you all keep talking too much and then you actually lose a sale, which happens quite a bit. So I talk more about that if you guys go to that site. And then the last step of the Pitch Queen system, right? We have the P, the I, the T, the C, and now we have the H. And you're going to laugh, but this is a true one. You have to hit the ask button. You actually have to ask your clients for the business. And I literally have a funny story for this one. So I was working with one of my CPAs named Scott. And Scott lets me talk about this all the time because he said, Michelle, I have 5 clients who've, told me they want to think about it, like massive engagements. I'm talking $25,000 to $45,000 type engagements. So maybe very similar to some of you on the investment side, right? Those kinds of dollar amounts is what you're asking for. And he said, Michelle, I would like send out proposals. I'd send emails and, they just never would engage. And he went through my whole program, my whole course. And his goal was that he had 5 main clients over a year period, ones that he's just like, I can totally help them, but they just keep disappearing on me. I said, okay, well, write those 5 names down and we're going to really focus on them over the next 8 weeks that we're together. He sent me an email. I'm not kidding. It was mid-January, so about a month ago. Michelle, not only did I do, like 100,000 in revenue with you in an 8-week period, over the last 4 weeks, I had some other clients that I reached out to. He did $248,000 in revenue in a 2.5-month period of business that, he just never asked for the business. And it's sort of like if you have kids, I'm sure a lot of people listening have kids or you've been to a party before. No one can come to your party if you don't invite them, right? And so many people like Scott, they do all this work up front and they do all these like things. And then I don't know if you think your clients are just going to fork over money, but you actually have to ask for it. So your clients are counting on you to, ask for the business. Some of you might have heard this is the close or, some other term. I don't even use any of that stuff. I literally just say it in a way of, I feel like we're really going to be a great fit to work together based on everything we talked about. And I know I can really help you. So I'm looking forward to getting started. Do you want to pay with a Visa, American Express, or do you want to do an ACH payment? And it just literally flows like that. And people just start paying you. And that's what my accountant on Monday experienced with a $2,500 profit first, consulting engagement for just like a 1-hour thing. And your clients are relying on you to tell them exactly what to do next. So if it's to start working with you, make sure you do the asking. And that's the last important piece of my Pitch Queen system in a short bit. But
right.
Again, P is problem solving, right? The I, it's not about you. And that's a big one. Those 2 are probably the biggest. Well, they're all big, but like those 2 are major. T, in this conversation, it stands for 2 things. Try on something we talked about today and also try talking a lot less. So, you are listening 80% of any like conversation. If it's a 10-minute conversation, You are listening for a good 8 minutes and you're only talking for 2. And then, C is cues, so the buying cues, and then H is hitting the ask button, like asking for the sale.
And I appreciate you going through there and then breaking it down. I think that there's definitely a lot of knowledge there. Yeah, sure. We're in a 45-minute interview. You can outline it very clearly. But of course, it's the blood, sweat, and years that actually make that system effective. And you have to start with trying. You have to start with getting to one. You also touched on something that I wanted to circle back on, which is most people think of that closing call, and they really have that closing call mentality. Like that's the important moment. Yeah. Well, I can tell you this from experience, and I want you to touch on this as well. The reality is creating an infrastructure to make that closing call go much easier.
Correct.
And building that infrastructure so that that last call is really just a matter of answering the last questions that they have before they move forward. So I want to give you an opportunity to talk about, for your business, it sounds like you do a lot of coaching, for example, the Profit First Consulting. By the way, Michael Michalowicz was recently a guest on the show, and I'm a huge
He's
fan
amazing.
of his. Yeah, he's amazing. Clockwork, I'm a huge fan of that book. I think it's very, very underrated. It's one of the most influential ones I've read, actually.
Yes.
So just going back to that infrastructure. So talk us through some of the infrastructure you've built around that funnel, which ends up resulting in someone being a coaching client of yours.
Well, the infrastructure, it goes a little deeper, but it's everything we just talked about. And, there's some front end things like really figuring out who, if it's on the investment side, who is your ideal investor? And I work with some specific people. So my accountants all have been in business over 2 years. They have clients. They have some sort of high value offer that they're offering, being at a $2,500 to $25,000 or $65,000 engagement with a client. They have worked and had conversations on their own and realized that not having a sales process is not helping them, and that they're missing opportunities. So I love to work with accountants like Scott, who, when we spoke, he's like, literally, Michelle, I have 100,000 in revenue that I was not able to get, and I don't really know why. And I've tried everything. No problem, Scott. I am your gal. He was the perfect fit. So I'm really looking for not that many clients, and I look for the perfect fit. And I run really small group online classes. So I have an 8-week course for accountants, who fit that target demographic. And then for the general population, I have my podcast, Success Unfiltered. And then soon you will be able to I'll do like a monthly coaching for anyone who does purchase How to Think and Act Like an 8-Figure Entrepreneur, because a lot of what I'm talking about is going to go much more in depth, and taking all of these lessons learned from, I've done over 100 interviews since I've started that podcast from some of the top entrepreneurs in product-based businesses, service-based businesses. I have interviewed investors, sales experts. So I'm always learning too. And, I've been taking quality notes for over a year. So I've got a lot of stuff that we're putting together. And that's really from getting to a close. It's not really like you have a certain meeting for a close. Like my sales conversations from one client is 1 hour, and it's from not knowing them to them enrolling all in 1 hour.
Wow.
So I don't have multiple conversations.
Right. And part of that's because of that infrastructure you build up.
Correct.
You mentioned the podcast, for example. People
Correct.
know who you are. They know the vibe that you're putting out there. They're familiar with you. I've actually learned, obviously, a lot from hosting this show, a lot of key takeaways. I imagine your show, especially since you focus on the struggles and the challenges.
Yes.
I'm very curious to hear, some of the key takeaways in terms of what are the major potholes people get stuck in, and how do those people typically overcome them? We touched on the emotional component, but if there was some guidance you can give new entrepreneurs based on your experience with having 100 interviews with people that have drove themselves in the ditch and worked their way out, what can you kind of share with us on that?
Well, Hunter, we would be here for another 2 to 3 hours.
For sure.
There's so much. I think like the biggest thing is your mindset and really identifying some of the things we talked about today, right? Like, are you willing to take action, or are you going to procrastinate longer? Where are you at? And really understanding if you can take the calculated risk that goes along with entrepreneurship. So, I don't even know where to begin, to be honest.
That's actually that's a great example.
Okay.
I mean, to be honest with you, that truly is something that's come up over and over again on this show, because that is the X factor.
It is.
And the way that I say is speed of execution.
It is.
How quickly can it go from having an idea to you beginning to execute on that idea? And, a colleague of mine, Adam Carswell, he does business development for us. He mentioned he used to play sports at a Division 1 level in college. And he said, the only difference between Division 1 and professional sports is basically speed.
Yeah.
In virtually every sport. I mean, in baseball, for example, the speed at which this pitcher can throw the ball, the speed at which someone can tackle someone, the speed at which you can catch, the range at which you can move. It is all about speed. And it's exactly the same in business. If you have incredible weaknesses, those can be significantly overcome by just going, because that's the one thing that almost everyone else is not doing.
It is. And, personally, I've been told that, like, Michelle, I can't believe you did that in such a short amount of time. I can't believe you figured it out that quick. But again, I had 10 years of a bumpy road, right? Like, from the mortgage business to my food company to like ups and downs and ups and downs. But the more ups and downs you have, the quicker you can bounce back. I mean, literally, I had people telling me like, I can't believe you did that to this in such a short amount of time. I even paid off all my debt. Like, I did everything so quick, but I think if you don't have those failures, then you're not going to be able to bounce back that quick. It's just like squats. If you don't go to the gym and do your squats, you're never going to grow a nice glute, right? Like, your butt will stay flat. It's not going to grow. And, it's the same in business. And, here's another thing. And I was doing this leadership program recently, and I got to coach like 6 people in the group. It was like called Captain's Week. And in Captain's Week, I said, you know what? What is the one thing that really helped me bounce back from all these like failures and things that I had to go through? And the one thing was I didn't let myself go. And I see a lot of people let themselves go. If it's, drinking a lot, doing drugs, like, you get so in the dumps with yourself. But one thing I didn't do was not let myself go. And I went to the gym. I did yoga. I went and did acupuncture. Like, I did not let myself go. And if you can focus on yourself, then you're going to be able to focus out more and help more people and be able to be motivated instead of procrastinate, because I was motivated, right? Like, I'm like, okay, I feel good. I'm ready to go. Okay. Thinking about what do I need to do today to get to where I want to go and how I can actually turn all this stuff that just happened to me into something positive. Because I was really trying to like sell my business. I'm like, oh, that would be so cool if I could sell my business and have this success story, all that stuff. Like, I was really, really worried about what people were going to think of me. I was really freaked out about what the hell my investors were going to do about me. All of them, they lost a little, it was a total of about $2 million. So granted, I get investments and that you're going to win some and you're going to lose some, but just like you deal with accredited investors, that's why they diversify. And if they invest in 10 things, hopefully one will work, right?
Right.
So I had to really, deal with that. And it was a struggle, like, to get up some days and like go to the gym. I didn't want to some days. So what did I do? I got classes. I started doing group classes. You have to set accountability up. But if you let yourself go, it's going to be hard to get everything else up and going. So, and it doesn't just have to be the gym. I mean, when I was doing my Captain's Week in my class, some of them, it was just take a bath at night. Some of them, it was just, meditate for 10 minutes. Some of them, it was go to the chiropractor and get an adjustment. But it was like, that is the first thing that people actually put off is themselves. I had some of them, they wanted to cancel their chiropractor appointment because they didn't have time for it. I'm like, no. You're going to cancel something else on your day and actually put that at the top. Because when you put yourself at the top, that's when things start to shift.
It has to be the case.
I'll leave it with that.
I'm a huge proponent of that. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And also, like, physical training, I do a lot of heavy lifting and running and stuff like that. And it's definitely the most motivating thing that you can do. That hour and a half that I spend in the gym, it has to be the case that I'm in there. That is like a top priority for me. Even when things get crazy, that's the absolute must be in the gym type of moment. So
it is. You can't get a butt. You can't get a butt if you don't go do your squats.
Yep.
Well,
I'm working on it.
You can't have a business with a lot of revenue and a lot of money if you actually don't go out there and talk to clients and try different things on. So
awesome. Well, that's actually a great note to end it on. I really appreciate it. You dropped a lot of knowledge on the listeners today, and I really appreciate it for your time. Before we jump off, let the listeners know how they can learn more about you and your podcast and your ebook.
Okay. So the best way, and you can get on my email list this way and get everything, is just go to sellwithoutsleaze.com. And if you spell sleaze the right way or the wrong way, you'll still get to the same place. So once again, it's sellwithoutsleaze.com. And my podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, everywhere is called Success Unfiltered. So thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thanks again. All right, listeners, thanks for checking out the episode. As always, the contact information for our guest will be available in the show notes page, which is hosted on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Stitcher. Don't forget, if you want access to some of the free goodies that I'm talking about at the beginning of these episodes, like free ebooks, weekly investor emails, and articles about some of the most important investment-related topics, make sure that you have created an account with CFC, because this stuff is automatically available. You can do this by going to cashflowconnections.com and signing up as an accredited investor. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to email me at hunterthompson@cashflowconnections.com. Thanks again.